host, Linley Winter, and this is Thursday, the 27th day of October 2022. On the Literary Hour, we will excite you, entertain you, and educate you. This is therapy for the soul, a relaxant for the tense and the anxious, and a stimulant for the weary. Now, if during the course of this evening's program you may want to get in touch with us, have a little conversation, you could, if it's just a message you want to shoot us, you can do it by way of the WhatsApp board, 789-1073. If you're calling from outside the Caribbean area, you've got to put the area code 268 in front of that, so it'll be 268-789-1073. If you're calling from within the Caribbean area, it is 562-1075. Of course, that includes Antigua and Barbuda. And if you're calling from North America, it's 315-704-3652. If you're calling from out of the African continent, or Australia, somewhere in Eurasia generally, or in England, just say a prayer and we'll hear. So, this evening on the Literary Hour, we will return to a format for the first half hour that we've done from time to time, and that is the interview. And in studio this evening with us is a young lady. Yes, a young lady, not a younger lady. A young lady who is an author. She has, at this time, authored at least 2 books, and she has previously worked in the media business. I think she's from Antigua and Barbuda. At least I hear people say so. But I will allow her to introduce herself. What is your name, young lady?
I am Patricia Louisa Tully.
Patricia Louisa Tully. That name sounds so familiar.
Yes.
How are you doing?
I am great and better for seeing you.
All right, very wonderful having you here, Lady Tully. Yes. Now, you've been part of at least 2 very amazing projects in recent times.
Yes.
2 very wonderful publications. The first one is a novel entitled Pioneers of the Caribbean. Tell us just a little bit about that and how your involvement in that began.
Okay, it's something I always wanted to do because it is basically a memoir of my mother, and it's something I always wanted to do. So I had I made several attempts, but never got it completed. And then I had a friend, and she got in touch with me when I was up in Canada visiting with my family, and she says, well, you know, they call me Lisa. I'm Lisa T also. So she says, Lisa, you know, I've been thinking I want to do this. I want to write something about my mom and so on. I says, well, I'm doing that too. And she says, well, yeah, let's do it. And so we started on the project, and then we produced the book in November 2020.
And it was last year we were supposed to have had this interview around this time.
Yes.
When you decided to get sick.
Yes.
You know, can't wait to tell.
That is true.
Wonderfully, you know, fate has brought you back our way. So
Thank you, and gratitude. I'm grateful.
Not a problem at all.
The book is Pioneers of the Caribbean, written by my co-author. Her name is Ingrid V. Lambie, and her story is about her mother championing the cause from Jamaica to Canada. My story, of course, is about my mother from Antigua to Canada, and leaving us as young kids behind, and then had us follow them later on. And all the challenges they had to meet and had to overcome, and so on. There's a lot of history in here about Antigua also, how we grew up. I am from Back Street, born and bred. My father would...
St. Martin?
No. Back Street, Antigua.
Oh, Back Street.
Back Street. Oh, yes. My father told me they were my neighbor, Stringberry.
As in Dickinson Bay
Street. Yes.
Yeah.
On the one street.
Unfortunately, very well. Or fortunately, very well, depending upon your country.
I grew up with your family. They're from there. Yes. So it has quite a lot of history about Antigua.
Pioneers of the Caribbean. You basically trace the life experiences of 2 Caribbean women who migrated to Canada. And
yes.
In a lot of ways, the idea of migrating out of the Caribbean area to the North American region, or in particular to Europe, if you're from, well, if you're from the French Caribbean, most of them will go to France.
Right.
If you're from the Spanish Caribbean, they go to Spain. And we find the Anglophone Caribbean people tend to migrate in the European sense, that direction, to England.
To England.
But usually the motive is generally the same. It's the idea of wanting to find a better life.
A better life for your family, definitely. Education, health-wise, yes.
And what you could tell us, without giving away too much about the book itself, what were some of the challenges that these women experienced?
A lot. Being, for my mom, she was single. My co-author, her mother was married to her father and so forth, and they had a mixed family, a number of children. With my mom, she was married to my father, but they were separated. So she was basically operating as a single person.
So she struck it out on her own after she and your father went separate ways?
Yes, and I think sometimes she forgot that she was single because, for example, when I got to Canada and so on, and she was not a landed immigrant as yet, because she needed permission from her husband because she's a married woman, not divorced.
And that says something about the nature of the legal system at the time.
Exactly.
That was very patriarchal, that here it is, an adult woman had to get the authorization of her husband to travel.
Yes, and to live abroad, and to have me live abroad with her. Because he was still my father, so he had to go to a lawyer here, had to get an affidavit, and had that all signed and so on, and then they allowed me to go to school there. But before that, they wouldn't even allow me into the school.
It's the kind of patriarchy that, in many ways, they shape the legislations which we've had to deal with over, the long period of our judicial history, legislative history, and these are laws which were created by men, really, to ensure that you protect the interests of men, and so you see it reflected in that way.
Right.
All right. So your mom migrated, settled, tried to do her best to provide for you as her children.
Right.
And she migrated to Canada in what year?
Well, before going to Canada and staying there permanently, she used to work at Miller's Club, and then she used to go up to New York to every year and work with a family there, and then she'd come back, and she did that for a number of years back and forth, and then finally from being in Connecticut, she moved over from Connecticut to Canada and stayed in Canada.
Okay.
And then we basically migrated.
Yeah. So.
And that was back in the late 50s, early 60s.
In the late 50s.
Yes.
And yours children, how many of you were there?
Well, in my family, there was basically 8 of us, but her and my dad share 6 children, but there were 2 other adopted brothers that grew up in our household. Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
And I am the youngest of the 8, let's say, and I basically was the one that left here and went there. My other brothers migrated to other places.
Yeah, migration is something that is a feature of Caribbean people's history. Some of it would have been involuntary, as people who have been directly part of the African slave trade, transatlantic slave trade. Some of it, in a sense, some would argue to have been involuntary, not that they really wanted to leave, but circumstances forced them to leave, in the sense of, wanting a better material life for themselves and their children, and so they would migrate. But I gather that from this, it is a nice, also one could say, sociological exploration of some of the factors that would contribute to people wanting to move to another place to find a better way of life. I know for example, in the Jamaican sociological culture, in terms of examining it by academics, there's a term that is used that they call barrel children. These are children of people who have migrated out of Jamaica, and they now send back food items every now and then, and that is how the children survive. But there's always this, it would seem for many, this viewpoint that outside is better. The grass is greener on the other side outlook. And in some ways it may be, sometimes it may not necessarily be so, but the pressures of economic survival in these parts do force many people to leave their home territories and seek a better life elsewhere. So, as children, about what time did you join your mom while she took up residence in Canada?
Early 60s as a young teenager.
Early 60s.
Yes.
So you had been living one life after a bit, and then you were immersed in another totally new environment. What was that like?
Scary. It was a real transition for me. Because how we grow up back home here, we walk to school, we walk home, and so on. There, it's totally different. I mean, it was culture shock for me. I mean, from the day I arrived, actually, because I was old enough where I traveled by myself, and when I got there, no one was there to greet me. My mom and now my brother were there to greet me. And that was a little scary. I eventually got on to my brother, who came to the airport and got me, because my mom and my brother never got. Those days, you would send a cable. You know how you send the cable from wireless? But the cable got to the home, but they were not at the home because it was summertime. She was at the cottage with the family she worked with.
Okay.
So they never got the information that I was arriving that day, so no one was there to greet me. And then in school now, I mean, I was the only black person in the school. I mean, it's lunchtime. You have to go to a cafeteria and have lunch. I'm not accustomed to that. I'm accustomed to going home, getting my lunch, walking back to school in the afternoon, etc. So it was real culture shock.
And how did the weather play on your, for example, going to school experiences?
I live in Antigua now because of the weather. Of course, your body tolerates it because you're young and so on. And I didn't like that much either. I remember the first time I saw snow. I thought it was wonderful. I went outside and played in it and went to bed. And then the next morning, my mother's waking me up and telling me, I got to go to school. I said, do what? I mean, and then tell the ladies, stay home. You know, and this white stuff is up there telling me I have to put on my clothes, go get bus, go to school.
A friend told me a similar story. He was a big man studying in the UK, and heavy snowfall. He thought, okay, everything is nice and dandy, he's staying in.
Yes.
And to find out next day, he missed a whole day of school, right? Yeah, but so we have this work of art that takes us to the lives of these two women. What do you figure are some of the key themes which are explored by this, and what are some of the important takeaways the reader should get out of this book?
The important thing is a journey, and they will see themselves in that journey. They will see family members of theirs in that journey that would have been away, and send money and send the barrel and the boxes and so on to assist you back down here. They will see how they had to struggle to meet ends, okay, to educate themselves, to get degrees. All of that is played out in their life's journey. How they approached it, how they dealt with it, the things that happened to them, that they experienced. Like my mom, for example, liking her fungi and her rice and peas and so on, and not being able to get such foods. Sometimes at night she can't sleep because she's thinking about her children. She hasn't been fed enough because it's summertime and it's just a salad and a corn, because she did domestic work for the first 5-6 years being there and so on. And all of that, how that affected her and some of the decisions that she had to make.
So much of it is an examination of a parent's sacrifice for her children.
Definitely.
Right? And in this case, two parents' sacrifice for their children. I remember reading one of the things which you sent me, and one part that grabbed me was where you made reference to your growing up experiences here as a little girl, and you were dancing to Benna music, and your mom's reaction to that. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, she had not long come home from New York, and where we lived, our fence was half of that fence. The back fence was Mama Mamacita friends, right? And Archie, Flaco Archie, right? And Mama's sister had a jukebox, and music would play in the jukebox. And our kitchen was outside. There was a little house outside close to the back fence. And the band of music was playing. And Mom was praying. I know I saw her on her knees in the bedroom praying. And I went outside in the kitchen. I was supposed to be doing whatever I'm doing and washing dishes. And the music came on. And I'm just there having me a good time and winding up myself and feeling good, making these moves and carrying on, you know, with the band of music playing from Mama's sister jukebox. And the next thing I know, I look so, there is my mother at the window with one of them kinds of faces looking at me. Boy, did I ever get some licks.
You committed one of the greatest sins of all.
Most definitely to the bed of music.
When I read that, I could not help but think of the extent to which we have, many of us, or certainly our foreparents, many of them, have been indoctrinated into the idea of seeing things which are culturally theirs as unworthy.
Right.
You know, I don't blame her for what she did, because I figure she's from a generation who did not fully appreciate what they had been subjected to at a psychological level.
And being a Christian also, Pilgrim Holiness, they used to call it Mission Church back then. I think there was Wesleyan Holiness.
Yeah.
And that's how she was raising us. We had to wear long sleeve, and we couldn't wear pants and shorts, and all of that doctrine in our
mind. The whole
mind.
idea of it, you know, even the churches, they were an integral part of the whole process of letting people buy into the idea that this is what good means.
Yes.
All right? I'm not a fan of a lot of these things, I'll tell you. People know that. Many people know that. But I realize as I grow and I read and so on how much they contributed to the subjugation of the people in this instance at a very deeply psychological level. So in reading that, I was happy for it being reflected in print form, and also hope that those who read it have the critical thinking skills enough to appreciate how psychologically disturbing that actions like those were for people in not appreciating the beauty in their own cultural experiences. You know, so that's my take on that. But there's another release you'd want to make the public be aware of, Patricia, before time expires.
Yes. Now, my co-author, her mother's name starts with, I'm going to tell you how it is. Her mother's name and my mother's name ended up spelling Dove. D-O for Dalvis, which is her mom's name. My mother's name is Veronica. So D-O and V-E, okay, spells Dove.
Right.
And that's where we get the name Dove Krib from. And as stated in the back of our book here, that we will be producing and we will do fundraisers and so on, and to help seniors out in whatever area we can. So we started on this second project that we just released, and this is called Stories from the Krib by Ingrid V. Lambie, my co-author, and Patricia L. Tully, and Agnola Charles. Now, Agnola Charles actually is an Antiguan. She is from Antigua, lived in English Harbor, and lived also on Fort Road. And she has also written a children's book in counting from 1 to 10. So we are basically the authors and editors of this book.
And that's a collection of some short stories and poems.
Yes, it is.
All right.
Short stories and poem about other person's journey, one person dealing with mental health issues, and so on. And another story about a lady that now has to live on her own because her husband passed away. So she now has to find, you know, working on her own and being a different person, learning to be her and seeing herself through another light as a single person. So it's a story that's compiled of all of that.
And how recently was this second project completed?
Okay, this was just completed two weeks ago.
Wow. So is that what you said, literally hot off the press?
Yes, it is.
And that's marvelous work.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's really wonderful to be involved in collaborative projects as well. You know. And how could people get this second publication?
Okay, this publication, you will get it on Amazon. Yes, you will get Pioneers of the Caribbean on Amazon also. But I want to encourage you to go and get it here in Antigua. You can get it at Best of Books.
Best of Books. I hear they have the Best of Books.
I hear they have the Best of Books. Yeah, they do have the Best of Books. Yes, yes. I can. Yeah. They do have the Best of Books. You can get it.
So Pioneers of the Caribbean at the Best of Books.
At Best of Books,
and
right here.
You could get the stories from the Krib, and that's Krib. Krib.
Yes.
That one could be gotten electronically from Amazon.
Yes.
So, you had a contribution on that one, Stories from the Krib. You want to tell us a bit about it?
Yes. I helped structure and edit the story of a young woman who was diagnosed with mental issues, and then her mom was a nurse and really saw something was a little off, and I of course picked up on that and took her to a psychiatrist, and then she was diagnosed with schizophrenia. And then her younger brother also was diagnosed with schizophrenia. So it was two of them in the family, a family of three. The older sister, she was born in England, and then the family migrated to Canada. And her name is Michelle, her and her brother were born in Canada, and they were both diagnosed with mental illness. And some of the challenges she has had to face and still face, and how she has been overcoming and healing herself, etc.
I'm happy for one thing that we're growing so much more in some cases for the better, and that we can now, more of us at least, appreciate that mental health illness is a real illness. It's not something you should really scorn people for, you know, but find ways to be sensitive and to be understanding in terms of their own experiences, and not to treat it as something to be dismissed. Yeah, so it's wonderful that you would have been able to assist someone with such a mental health challenge and be able to at least help them to leave a footprint for the future generations through your being able to, you know, inscribe their thoughts and so forth on paper for them. That's really, really mighty stuff, Patricia.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, you know, this is awesome stuff, and we want to thank all of you who would have made this possible. The first one, you know, the journey of these two young ladies, and their gift to us in the forms of yourselves, you know, who have been able to capture their life experiences in print form for us, you know, in some means in which you could read and grasp. Those of us who don't have the electronic copies were able to get the hard copies. You know, you open the page, you smell the book and so forth. That's one part of the experience which I like.
Yes.
You know, and then the second project. Anything else is in store for Patricia and Company?
We will be doing some more books later on.
Okay, wonderful. But before we go, and you know, we don't have much time, but nevertheless, you know, you didn't come to this as someone who's wet behind the ears. You've had some experience in media relations and so forth. Do you not?
Yeah, yes, I have.
So tell us a little bit of the story, you know. What media experiences you've had? You know, what have you done in that regard?
Well, I've done some of that in Canada, and on radio stations there, and I do a little bit of that here, right here on Progressive. Is that it? Yeah,
I've never heard you on a Thursday morning. No facts without fiction, but not fiction. I've never heard it.
Yes. As a matter of fact, I'm sure as you remember, years ago I used to do that. It was on a Tuesday night then, for an hour and a half, facts not fiction, back leading up to the 2014 election.
Okay.
Yes.
Right.
And we've just revived it again.
And you used to, in your past life, in the Canadian environment, you used to write features, you know, articles for media houses, yes?
Yes. Yes.
Give me a little insight. What happened?
Yes.
Let's get to know you a little more, baby.
I used to do that with Contrast newspaper, and on the weekends I would go out and cover the entertainment that was going on when the Temptations were in town, take pictures, talk with them, write about them.
You're a regular party girl too.
Definitely.
Up to now.
Yes.
You love for party.
Yes.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Right? If it's your thing, it's your thing.
It is my thing.
And it provided all the stimulation almost, that you needed to create something wonderful as a feature for the paper.
Yes. And I've written for our commemorative magazines here for Carnival 50, for our Independence, 25th anniversary Independence, stuff like that. I have written several articles.
So this is not the first time the tool has been put to work.
No.
You've used those tools before.
Yes.
Excellent. All right. So we're just about on the half hour. Patricia, it's really, really lovely having you in studio. It's great that our audience could be treated to some of your masterpieces, your collaborative pieces, and we want to encourage persons to do their best to get copies of them. The hard copies, as Patricia said you could go to Best of Books, which has the best of books, right? And you could get Pioneers of the Caribbean, and you could go online to Amazon and get digital copies of Stories from the Krib.
And of Pioneers of the Caribbean.
And also Pioneers of the Caribbean.
Yes.
Patricia, Louisa, Tully, it has been very, very wonderful speaking with you. But don't tell you email for talk to Nigga from down Back Street, because we think our Back Street nigga crazy.
You're so special.
But that is another thing altogether.
Thank you so much for having me. I do appreciate it. Blessings on you, my brother.
Well, thank you, my dear. But much more to you.
Thanks.
Okay, and great things have been done by yourselves, and we really wish much more as well.
Thank you. And audience, go out and support Pioneers of the Caribbean. You can get the Best of Books and Stories from the Krib. You can get on Amazon.
All right. So that has been our guest, Patricia Louisa Tully, a co-author and one of Antigua's gems, Antigua and Barbuda's gems. We're going to go to